out there.
There he is.
Aloha, Senator.
Hello, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Amazing. Amazing.
Are we okay?
We look great. Well, you look great, as always.
I think I need a suntan. I'm getting a little pale.
How's the weather out there today in Hawaii?
You know, just another boring day in paradise. Low 80s during the day, low 70s, mid 70s at night. It gets kind of boring after a while, Brian.
Yeah, well, don't get bored by it for the rest of us.
Okay.
Well, aloha, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're live here. Happy World Reef Day to everyone. We have an exciting series all week this week to kick off World Oceans Month. And today I would like to introduce and welcome Senator Mike Gabbard from Hawaii. Welcome, Senator.
Aloha. Aloha, Mike Kako. Good to see you again, Brian.
Always great to see you. Thank you. This week, it's all about inspiration. We have some incredible people who are wonderful thought leaders and incredibly influential in reef protection, reef conservation, spreading education, and creating action. And another enormous part of this campaign for the week really is to highlight four incredible organizations that are doing great work out there in the field, making a difference. Sustainable Coastlines in Hawaii, Surfrider Oahu Chapter, Malama Pupukea Waimea on the North Shore of Oahu, and also Coral Gardeners out in Tahiti. Four great organizations that truly are making a difference, and they need our support. They need our support to help with their mission and to help support everything that they're doing. So another big purpose of this whole week and really the whole month is to raise contributions and raise funds for the great organizations. So if you can find a way, worldreefday.org, link is in our bio. Check the organizations out and please donate support if you can. So getting back to Senator Gabbard, thrilled to have you on. And Senator, you were a huge part of our incredible inaugural World Reef Day celebration last year, which is the first year World Reef Day was founded. We celebrated together in Waikiki at Waikiki Beach. We had Hokulea out there from the Polynesian Voyaging Society. We had an incredible group of people, just incredible aloha spirit, all coming together really to celebrate the first World Reef Day, but to present it to you, to the state of Hawaii, in honor of the pioneering efforts that you took in changing legislation to protect your coral reefs from sunscreen pollution. But that's not the only part of legislation that you do in protection of your reefs. So, but we gathered, we celebrated that inaugural World Reef Day and presented it to the state of Hawaii. And again, that pioneering effort of yours that I'm specifically speaking to is this world famous sunscreen bill that you authored and the state of Hawaii put through and led the world, banning 2 chemical sunscreens that we know are damaging and killing coral reefs. So I'd love for you to share a little bit of your perspective of why that issue is so important to you and to the state, and really bringing it to life.
Okay, Brian. Actually, let me start off with something here.
I was gonna, but I didn't want to put you on the spot. I should have.
The musicians, you always got to start with a song, right?
Right.
Let's see here. Back in 2018, right? It's time to ban oxybenzone. It's time to ban octinoxate. We can do this now if we work together to protect our reefs, marine and human life. say, Brian? Aloha to Raw Elements USA. It's founding World Reef Day. It's time to take seriously protecting our reefs. Have a happy World Reef Day today. Okay.
Amazing. Love it.
Let me put that down. All right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so, and I want, first of all, aloha mai kako to everyone out there. And, you know, it's really an honor, Brian, to participate in this second World Reef Day celebration. And as you mentioned, last year at Duke's in Waikiki, I mean, it was awesome. And of course, too bad because of COVID-19 that we can't do it in person this time. But thanks to technology, we can at least do it virtually. So a big mahalo to you and your team at Raw Elements for making this happen and for, you know, raising awareness about protecting our oceans and our reefs. And so, you know, you're asking what this means to me. And Brian, it's really personal. I've been the committee chair of the environment-related subject matter for the state Senate for the last 11 years. And before that, I've been an environmentalist, you know, before I became an elected official. And actually it was back in, I think it was 1996, when my daughter, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, she was 15 at the time. She and I, we formed a nonprofit called People for the Environmental and Community Health. The acronym was PEACH. And then in 2001, we changed the name to Healthy Hawai'i Coalition. And Brian, it has been an amazing journey. You know, over 6,000 students in 60 schools statewide have participated in HHC's program. It's called the Hawai'i Watershed Experience. And it includes our very popular field trips and also a skit that Tulsi wrote. Remember now, she's like 15 years old, right? But it's like a 6 or 7 minutes skit. It's called The Adventures of Water Woman. And she plays Water Woman, and I play Oily Al. And so, you know, I'm just disgusting. I got these dirty overalls on, and I'm walking down by the stream, this beautiful stream, and I'm eating my candy. I'm throwing my wrappers in the stream, and I'm drinking my Coke, throwing my can. And as I'm doing that, all of a sudden, from the other side of the stage, Water Woman comes out. She's got a big W on her chest, and she's got a cape, and she said, "What are you doing? Who are you?" You know, I'm Oily Al. Who are you? You know, come on, lady. And anyway, in the course of me doing all this pollution, she teaches me about how I shouldn't do that and why, and you know, dumping my used oil in the storm drain, all kinds of stuff. And at the very end of the skit, I come out. Of course, I'm transformed, right? And I do a quick costume change backstage, and I come out in this all white, and now I'm Awesome Al, and I've learned my lesson. But that kind of course, the kids, you know, these are 2nd and 3rd graders, they just really love it. But you know, that the whole curriculum, it teaches the students that in Hawaiian it's called ahupua'a, and that's from the top of the mountain all the way down to the ocean, and they're taught the concept of taking care of that watershed from the top of the mountain to the ocean. And so, and then as far as the backstory on, you know, it was 2018 when we first started working on our landmark, first in the world, as you mentioned, legislation to ban the dangerous chemicals, oxybenzone and octinoxate in sunscreens, starting January 1st, 2021. And of course, Brian, the first thing we looked at was the science, right? And the science told us that these chemicals, oxybenzone, octinoxate, that you know, that they were not good, that that they're a threat to our coral reefs. And as we all know, our coral reefs are an integral part of having a healthy ocean, right? Our ocean ecosystem. And the fact is that they're definitely under threat from runoff, from wastewater, impacts of climate change, et cetera. And then besides the science, we also looked into the research. And at that time, we looked at the U.S. National Park Service. They told us that this really got me, Brian. More than 6,000 tons of sunscreen end up in Hawaiian waters every single year. And when I saw that, I was going, you got to be kidding me. And then our own Department of Land and Natural Resources, they came up with their studies showed that 55 gallons of sunscreen go into our nearshore waters on Maui every day. Mm. And so I was blown away. And so, with that volume of chemical sunscreens pouring into our oceans, and of course our reefs, our reefs have next to no chance of recovery. So by moving forward with the law and passing it as Act 104, banning oxybenzone and octinoxate in 2018, our state created literally a policy-changing tidal wave with locales such as Palau, Aruba, Bonaire, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Marshall Islands, part of Mexico, and also the city of Key West, following our example, following our lead. So it's really, really cool to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I can tell you, your lead did create a tidal wave, and it took someone, or it took the state of Hawaii to take a stand, to really come out and show by example. And as you said, you see the result of these other nations, municipalities that followed suit. And also from a sunscreen industry standpoint, that's all it took. And even preempting any federal regulation, the whole industry shifted. And all of these chemicals were phasing out these ingredients now, simply because of how powerful your action in Hawaii and how we all look to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Environmental responsibility, cultural responsibility, the way that Hawaii cares for its own people, for its land, for its resources, and how it's so proud to share that cultural spirit and also share that education. It's really magnificent. Yes, personally, every time I arrive to Hawaii, I'm just so inspired by how committed the people are to sharing message, sharing that beauty. And we as guests and visitors, we want to participate. We want to do the right thing, but it takes a lead, and it takes leaders to show us what that is. So yeah, and it's changed the whole landscape for sure.
Yeah, it's that aloha spirit. That's what it is. I mean, it's real. And, a lot of folks, they come from the mainland, and they of course they're enamored by the beauty, the physical beauty of the oceans and the mountains and all that. But then many times we talk to them and says, but there's something else. There's something, it's intangible. It's the people. It's just how I'm treated here. So it's really cool. It's really cool to be a part of it, Brian. And what I've said all along is that, I'm one player. I've got my role as a policymaker, but the Hawaiian term, it's a kako thing. And kako means all-inclusive, that it takes people like yourself, your company, it takes the people who are coming in, the environmental groups, everybody doing their part, doing their share to get this thing to happen. And that was the beauty of getting this bill passed, was everybody coming together and said, let's do this. And it happened. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I think the experience in the inaugural World Reef Day, just for a moment, it showcased the power of the NGOs that are doing the great work, the private companies that are mission driven and really care, and the government officials that make the policy happen, and how that's the way it's supposed to work, where everyone comes together, public, private, NGO, to make real change, and that's so kind of highlighting on that, a couple questions. First, I think we as individuals and consumers, we get a lot of information. We follow a lot of great social media sites, and we're presented with why we have to care for our environment. But I think that from an environmental standpoint, but I think there is also, in what I'm sure you look at from a government standpoint, there's incredible economic reasons to protect our environment. And you know, for Hawaii, it's such a beautiful destination. People from all over the world come there because they want to experience the beauty. They want to get in the ocean and experience the life. And maybe if you could just touch on, you know, why healthy reefs, healthy ecosystems are so important for economic reasons for the state of Hawaii too, because I think that's a real model that, you know, other municipalities and nations who have been active are aware of, but there's plenty others that I think really need to understand that that's a short-term issue that they need to be behind.
Yeah. Well, you know, Brian, the fact that last year we got 10 million tourists, and tourism is the engine for our economy here. And so it's that in itself, you know, if you don't have pristine oceans and beautiful mountains and all that goes along with living in paradise, if you don't take care of the ecosystem, if you don't have the policymakers allocating the appropriation funds to make this happen, to help out the Department of Land and Natural Resources to do their job, to make sure that the beaches are pristine, and then it takes away from the overall beauty of this place, the attraction of this place. So, of course, it's been a little bit different during the pandemic. You know, we were getting 30,000 tourists a day. I think that was the number, and I think it's down to like 50 or 75, a very small number. But in one sense, I've been talking to some of the environmental groups. It's kind of like a blessing in the sense that, you know, out at Hanauma Bay, which I'm sure you visited, it's giving nature a chance to rejuvenate and to breathe again and to not have all that human contact. So but going back to what it's just really important that we make an active decision, to be active in doing and preserving what we have, this beautiful place that we have. And it's you know, it's easy to get lost. It's also easy to take it for granted, Brian. That's the other thing. I as the chair of the Agriculture and Environment Committee, it's sometimes, as we're looking at all the other places and groups and various issues that need money, you know, sometimes we take it for granted. Okay, yeah, that's okay. We can get that next year. But I think that's, and one of the things that people say, well, how can I get involved? You know what? You know, well, what you're doing, just having this event, making it an annual event, is super important in terms of raising awareness. But I would also say that I would recommend people getting involved in their legislature, wherever they are, they're in their legislative body, that when these bills come up, and, you know, phone calls, emails, letters, social media posts, those are all important. But the most effective way I found is submitting testimony for the committee that's hearing the legislation. And it's best to be there in person, because that way it's, you know, this is fine. If there's no way that you can be there in person, that's fine. But, you know, we've had groups like you mentioned, Surfrider Foundation. They've organized students from elementary schools all the way up to college, and they come in and testify in person. And this is always excellent. And when you think about it, I was just thinking about some of the hearings that I've sat at, been up there, and you've got students there, and sometimes it gets pretty emotional. You know, it's and very powerful because they're speaking from their heart. You know, it's like, Senator, I live here. I want my kids to have a paradise. And unless you take care of the reefs, it's not going to be here. So could you please pass this bill? And sometimes I'll look at my committee members and I'll see tears coming down, you know. So it's super important to do that.
Powerful. You took, you know, 2 points that I wanted to ask you about, and that is, you know, how do we as citizens get involved and support, you know, legislation that may be on the table, or even, you know, initiating conversations and because people ask that all the time. I'm just one person. You know, citizen, but that civic responsibility and also just understanding what they can do as individuals. And I'm glad that you brought it up. And that is what you encourage. It's
Absolutely.
Start with contacting maybe the local representative to get good instruction or good guidance, or what would you say is the first step for citizens who really want to be involved, want their voice to be heard? What's a great first step for them if they don't really know where to start?
I would say, contact the NGOs, some of the NGOs that you mentioned, Surfrider Foundation, Sierra Club, so many, and check in with them, because they've already got things rolling. They know kind of like what's happening and then can point you in the right direction. But also as an elected official, when I get a call from a constituent about an issue, like my own personal office policy is we have to respond within 24 hours to every single phone call, email, letter, whatever, so that they know we didn't just stick their name at the bottom of the pile and they're not going to hear from us. And then, but when I get that, then it's to take action. So the fact that the constituents who elect us into office are making an effort to contact you about an issue, right? And let's say it's protecting our reefs, then we also can point them in the right direction. But I would say, yeah, either contacting one of the NGOs or call up their representative, council person, representative, senator, and ask for some guidance.
We mentioned at the open the NGOs, the four that are benefiting. We're raising funds to support for World Reef Day again. Sustainable Coastlines in Hawaii, Surfrider Oahu chapter, Malama Pupakea Waimea on the North Shore, and Coral Garden, Haiti. And NGOs like that, as you said, they are so important. How much do they support what you're trying to do, and how valuable is their ability to assemble, their ability to gather, ability to educate the youth, bring the youth in, as you mentioned, all of those things? Do they really make things happen and help support your efforts? And how important are they? Because I don't know that people totally understand, and hearing it from you, it's really powerful.
Yeah. Brian, super important. In 2018, when we were working on the oxybenzone octinoxate bill, that started with an ad hoc, bunch of environmental groups and scientists. They were called the Hawai'i Reef and Ocean Coalition. HIROC is the acronym. But they got together, and I participated in meetings with them in the summer and fall of, actually it was 2017. And so I was actually asked to take the lead in the legislature on introducing the bill, which became Senate Bill 2571. And then when it passed, it became Act 104. And so it was Dr. Craig Downs from Hereticus, the executive director of Hereticus Environmental Lab based in Virginia, I believe. He had a big hand in helping to establish the, as I mentioned earlier, the scientific evidence, because that was so important. So, and it was interesting because once the bill started rolling, we had multinational cosmetic companies who were flying in their lobbyists because, what the hell's Gabbard doing? What do you mean? It's in all of our products, right? And they were knocking on doors and saying, this is not a good bill, and trying to give it. So there was that push and pull right there. And so, and one of the things that, and so when the bill was being discussed, it was those who were opposed were the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii, the Hawaii Skin Cancer Coalition, Consumer Healthcare Products Association, the Hawaii Medical Association, American Chemistry Council, of course, the Hawaii Food Industry Association, and local stores, the ABC store. They were all totally opposed. And so, but it was nonprofit groups like Friends of Hanauma Bay, Surfrider Foundation, Sustainable Coastlines. They were key. And by doing a lot of the groundwork and educating legislators, getting testimony and support of the legislation to help get it passed. And so, yeah, that's super important. And also I wanted to mention that the tourism industry, they played a role. Since they are the economic engine here in Hawaii, right? You know, Aqua Aston Hospitality Hotels, they launched a safe sunscreen program for all of its guests. Hawaiian Airlines, they had a sunscreen and reef protection educational program on their flights. Inter Island, as well as coming into Hawaii from the mainland and elsewhere. And it was, you know, again, as I said, kako, people, everybody working together. We had our local Department of Land and Natural Resources. They help educate locals and tourists about the harm that these chemicals cause our reefs. And then companies like yours, Brian, that are offering reef-safe sunscreens, you know, for consumers. And I wanted to mention a story because I was, you know, we were not being able to swim or surf is a big, you can imagine living in paradise, what an austerity it is. But so the last couple of weeks, last month or so, we've been going out to Zablin's. It's out on the Nanakuli on the west side. And I was out there with my wife, and just before we were getting ready to go in, I noticed these very white looking howleys that were sitting on the beach. And I was thinking, man, I hope they got their sunscreen. So, and it's interesting, the guy comes up and he looks at me because he says, oh, excuse me, I heard that you guys are, you're very concerned about protecting the reefs, and I just want to make sure I got the right kind of sunscreen. And he holds up this bottle of Copper Tone, and I looked at it and I said, that's not the one. And I just happened to have.
Oh, right on.
I just happened to have these little free samples of raw elements in my bag. I gave them to him, and he said, oh, wow, thank you so much. You know, and he was so excited. And he went over there and he started lathering up and everything. But again, that's, you know, that's the kind of thing that kako, people helping each other, working together, using that aloha spirit to do the work that we need to do to protect our reefs.
It really is a team effort, and it's all about, you know, different levels of organizations coming together. And, you know, I mentioned this at the World Reef Day, and I want to mention it again because, you know, it's, I know you know this, but I just want to reinforce it as, you know, as a visitor, as a guest of Hawaii, the inspiration that the state and its people provide to us, the education, the lessons that we take there, that we learn when we're there, the way you're forced to slow down a bit and just absorb the beauty and the connectivity between human and the earth. It's so powerful there. And these lessons that we learn, you know, the sunscreen being obviously a very specific one, but it's all of it. It's all of it. When we leave Hawaii, we go back to all of these places all over the world, and that inspiration leaves Hawaii and you know, and travels, and it's transplanted everywhere around the world. So, you know, I can't thank you enough for everything and for being so inspirational, and being leaders, true leaders.
Yeah. You know, interesting, Brian, I thought of one of the things that, you know, tourists have actually mentioned to me that they don't hear in Hawaii is people honking their horns. And a local thing, it's just like only the guys from the mainland are, you know what I mean? Because, you know, you're at a stoplight or whatever like that, unless there's some guy that just falls asleep or he's so immersed in reading his phone or whatever that he doesn't, you know. But yeah, it's just an aloha thing, you know.
It's infectious. It's infectious.
Yeah, it is. It is, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I always feel a bit of a different person, you know, when I return home from Hawaii.
Okay, what's happening here? Oh,
there we go. Good.
there we go. All right.
So, well, Senator Gabbard, thank you. It's great to connect with you always. Thank you for your incredible work. Again, I would just love to recognize our NGOs one more time: Sustainable Coastlines Hawaii, Malama Pupukea, Waimea on the North Shore, Surfrider Oahu Chapter, and Coral Gardeners out in Tahiti. These groups are doing incredible work. They're cleaning up the plastics and the debris from our oceans. They're working on legislation. They're educating our youth. They're protecting our reefs, cleaning up debris from the reefs. They're fostering and gardening new reefs. So it's just all of this incredible work, and they need our support. They need our help to help fund their incredible work. So again, link is in our bio, worldreefday.org. If you can, please join. And every little bit helps to donate to these organizations for their incredible work. And again, Senator Gabbard, thank you. Much aloha and mahalo for joining us and for being part of the World Reef Day experience. Anything else on your side that you'd like to touch on?
I just wanted to mention that I'm going to keep pushing for appropriate funding for our Department of Land and Natural Resources, and so they can continue with the amazing work that they're doing. And then finally, Brian, just a shout out to you guys, to you and Raw Elements for raising global awareness about the importance of our reefs and oceans. So aloha and mahalo.
Aloha and mahalo to you, and having your support is incredibly inspiring. So thank you.
Okay, aloha.